Welcome everyone to Bonifabcustom. Today we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to be making a budget build. Now what I mean by that is that I want to do it, or I want to do this project for less than a certain amount of money. Now I'm going to be building a paddleboard out of foam and carbon fiber, and I want to do it for less than $200. Now the things I'm going to be using for this, so for the core of the paddleboard, I'm going to be using a polyurethane foam. Now the foam is, it's available everywhere, but like I said, it's a budget build, so I want to do it for the least amount of money as possible. Now you can buy this, or you can get this polyurethane foam for free if you look into Kijiji or Facebook Marketplace, and you're looking under foam or foam core. And what people do is, this usually comes from insulated paneling, and people that scrap insulated paneling, they can't scrap it with the foam inside, so they'll tear off the steel from both sides and then get rid of the foam, scrap it, or sell it for really cheap. And the stuff that I'm getting is, I got it from Kijiji and I paid nothing for it. It comes in panels that are 4 foot by 10 foot long, which is going to be great for the paddleboard. And it's about 4 inches thick. Now I'm going to go pick that up so I can start taking it and cutting it into the paddleboard shape, and then sanding it down so I don't have sharp corners on it. Now the next thing I'm going to use is, for the skin of the paddleboard, I'm going to use some carbon fiber. Now a lot of people think carbon fiber is really expensive. It's really, the expense is in the finished product. It takes a long time to make a really nice piece with carbon fiber. But the actual material, and that's what we're after, is pretty inexpensive. The stuff that I'm using is a 4 ounce, and I'm only going to be using about 4 yards of this 4 ounce carbon fiber. Now it costs about $15 a yard, so very inexpensive. And it's just like a cloth, like a t-shirt material. It's very similar to like a fiberglass. And the reason I'm going to use carbon fiber is because it's lighter and stronger than fiberglass. That means I need less of it to really stiffen up this polyurethane foam, because the polyurethane foam has, it's flexible. Now it's waterproof, but it is flexible, so we need to stiffen it out by putting some carbon fiber skin around it. And right now the carbon fiber is going to come in a cloth form, so I need to add a resin to it to stick to the polyurethane foam and to harden up and really utilize the stiffness of this carbon fiber. And what I'm going to use for that is designer epoxy resin. Now this resin isn't formulated specifically for carbon fiber. It's a epoxy resin that is really used for wood, for coating wood and for doing various things like that. So because of that, it's a little more inexpensive. Now I'm going to be using only about, say, a gallon, if that, to do the whole project. A 3-gallon kit costs $200. So divide that by 3, very inexpensive for the actual epoxy that we're going to use for the whole entire project. So without further ado, let's get our materials and start making our budget build paddleboard. Let's get right into it. Okay, so now that I got the foam all sanded up, I give it a good blow with the air hose to get any of the dust out. And I'm getting ready to put on this first layer of unidirectional carbon fiber. And I'm putting it right down the middle because this is going to be really the support of it to stop flexing. Now, if you look at it, there's nothing there right now, and it flexes pretty easily. It's dense, but it's pretty good foam, but it does flex. If you just stood on this in water, you just crack this thing in half. So I put this layer on here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up some epoxy resin, and I'm going to mix it up with my mixing cup, and this is a 2-to-1 epoxy. I'm going to mix up about a quart, and I'm going to start painting it on there lightly on the foam, and then I'm going to place my unidirectional carbon fiber on top and then paint that in also, and I'll keep it at that for now. I actually have to put some things on the floor there so it doesn't drip all over my floor. Okay, let's mix up some epoxy and start putting it on. So now that I have this coated, I'm going to put one layer of some 4-ounce carbon fiber right over top of the whole thing, and I'm going to epoxy it and kind of brush on the epoxy around the sides. I'll trim it around just to get that nice even piece of carbon fiber on top. So it's the next day, and that first layer I did on this side is pretty much cured. It's pretty hard. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to flip it over very carefully, and I'm going to start folding this side over, putting some resin, and epoxying the sides of it to get it cured, and the top piece. And then I'm going to put another piece, layer on top of that to kind of hold the whole thing together. So now I dry fitted the two sides. I made sure they went over, and this is going to be the bottom side of the paddle board. So I just put extra pieces inside there just to give it some strength, and the cover, make sure it goes fully around. And then after this is somewhat cured, I'm going to put a full sheet of nicer carbon over top to kind of hide those little pieces that I put in there. Make it look a little nicer. So Now that it's kind of dry fitted there, I'm going to mix up some more resin and start layering that up, getting that nice and nicely put in resin, and just make sure I have it coated real nicely. So I'm going to add 3 fins to the bottom of the paddle board. Now these fins are going to help it guide it straight through the water. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm actually going to be printing the actual fin with a base to it. I'm going to design it on my CAD, and I'll print it out with my 3D printer. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it and I'm going to laminate it with carbon fiber, and just a layer or 2 on top with some epoxy resin should really stiffen it up and make it strong enough to hold or guide the paddleboard straight through the water. Now, if you need any of these files, just reach out to me at bonifabcustom@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to share any of those 3D files with you. So it's still curing. That's one of the fins. And I'm basically gonna just put it on there with some resin underneath. And then I'm gonna carbon fiber, just put carbon fiber on both sides and just laminate it like that. And then I'll just clean it up with the grinder. And we'll see how that works. Okay, so I have my fins. See the 2 smaller ones and the big one, center one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap them in carbon fiber. And the way I do that is, I'll show you on this smaller one first, is I get some spray adhesive. Spray it on both sides. That was a thicker weave carbon fiber, and I'm just going to cut it, cut a couple of pieces. Basically going to put this over top. Like that on one side. And I'll spray carbon 2 on this side so it sticks together. And put the other side on, just like that. Now it's going to hold together, so when I put the resin on, it's going to stay nice and tight. Just going to make sure I get it all the way around the actual print, and just like that. Basically these 2 parts where it's going to sit on the board are going to stay without resin, so I can resin them to the actual board. Oops. Cut some of this excess off. Make sure I have lots on here, like that. And I'm going to put it inside the plastic there. Just do the other side a little bit more. Okay. I take it, open up my plastic, and put it inside there. Okay, so it's the next day, and we're gonna demold the fins and hopefully get demolds properly. There we go. Okay, there's one. Looks pretty good, pretty stiff. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the excess off with the grinder. I'm going to put some, not grip tape, but foam. And it's very similar to yoga mat, and I got these kids yoga mats at Winners, and this is it was like $5, so really inexpensive, very similar to the stuff that's on the production boards. So I'm going to cut that up, and I'm going to contact cement it onto the board. So now that it's not tacky anymore, the contact cement, now I can start placing this foam on here. And you gotta be very careful with this stuff that you don't put it on wrong, because it will not come back off. So I kind of drew some lines or some of the corners, so I'm just going to kind of place it down. On there. Just going to make sure that when I put this side down, it's somewhat centered and tight. That's on there. Just take this tape off. Okay. So that's on there forever. That's not going to come off, and it's waterproof. Okay, so that covers some of the ugliness. I'm going to do the front piece now, and then that's the center. So for the paddle, I printed up this paddle print that I made, and I'm using this bag, which is a typical recycling bag, garbage bag. So I'm going to put it inside the bag. So I'm going to place my carbon fiber on top of here with resin. Then I'm going to take the other side of the bag, flip it over, and then put some of this mesh that I got on top of there, just in front of the vacuum part on this typical medium vacuum seal storage bag. Now I'm going to try this. I never did it with a vacuum seal bag, but we'll try it. It's a little more inexpensive. And I'm going to take this, actually this part here, this is where the part of the paddle, the oar I guess it is, and or the handle, this is where it's going to be attached to. So I'm just going to put that in with the carbon fiber, and in theory hopefully it molds over it nicely. So let's pour some resin and start making our paddle. So now I kind of cleaned up this part where I'm going to put the handle or the oar, and I got basically an old broomstick. It's an aluminum broomstick, and I'm going to just take this, I kind of tapered the end and stuff it in here like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap carbon around this section here, and I'm just going to put a layer of carbon just over top here just to clean up that front edge and just add a little more strength to it, and hopefully that will hold up. So the paddle board's all finished, and we're going to give it a couple of days just to make sure that it's cured fully before I test it. Now, just to go through the pricing of what I spent to see if I spent less than $200, the carbon fiber, 4 yards, was $60. The epoxy resin, about a gallon, was $65. The foam was free. The paintbrushes and mixing cans I got all from the dollar store, and that was about $12 to $15. and the yoga mat was $5. So in total, even with the glue and the spray-on glue I used, with the paddle out of carbon fiber and the aluminum handle that I had here, so I didn't pay for the aluminum handle, but approximately about $155 complete for the paddleboard out of carbon fiber. So I exceeded my budget. Actually, I went lower than my budget. I exceeded my expectations to how much I was going to spend, and I spent a lot less than $200 for the complete paddleboard out of carbon fiber. Now, again, it's not the prettiest thing, but the last thing we need to do is really test it to see if either I threw away that $165 or actually did something with it and made something that works. So let's go to my house and we're going to take the paddleboard there and the paddle and see if it works in my pool. Hey everyone, so we're here at my house. We're going to test out the paddleboard, and no, I'm not wearing a white t-shirt under this life jacket. It's just my really bad farmer's tan. So the first thing I want to do with the paddleboard is put it in the water and just to see if it actually floats, and after it floats we'll try it out to see if it floats with me on it. So let's get it now. Now I weighed it and it weighs about 35 pounds, which isn't too bad. It is a single piece and there's a lot of resin on there. It's not the prettiest thing, but let's just hope that it floats and works. Also, this is a paddle. It didn't come out exactly what I thought it was going to come out like, but I think it's going to work. It seems pretty stiff, and we're just going to have to see how it works in the water. I'm literally going to throw it in here. Okay, it's not sinking yet. Pushing it down a little bit. Seems pretty good. Okay, so pretty buoyant with me on it. Go. Seems pretty good. Now, I've never been on a paddleboard before. This is my first time. Oh. Oh. There you have it. It works. Now it's really time to try it at the beach in some real water. But overall, it does float. Feels pretty good. This is my first time on a paddleboard. I don't have the best balance, and the paddle seems to be working good. And if you think about it, I mean, for less than $200, it's not too bad. Whoa. Whoa. I got it. So thanks. Thanks again for watching Bonifabcustom as we made this budget paddleboard for less than $200 and out of carbon fiber, out of all things, and seems to work pretty good. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos of fabrication just like this one.